To understand the cataclysm of January 2026, we must begin with the foundational paradox of modern Iran. The Islamic Republic was born from a popular revolution in 1979, the Islamic Revolution, which overthrew the centuries-old monarchy of the Shah. What emerged was not a democracy, but a state ruled by a clerical majority, forged in the crucible of the Cold War. The revolutionary leaders declared the new regime a totalitarian project, one that positioned itself against Western imperialism, particularly that of the United States. Yet from the very beginning, the Iranian people were caught in a contradiction. Exhausted by the old monarchy and swayed by the powerful propaganda of the revolutionary movement, they helped dismantle the Shah's rule in 1979, only to see it replaced by a different kind of autocracy. That regime endures to this day, led first by Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, and after his death in 1989, by the current supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. He commands a rigid hierarchy of hundreds of thousands of hardline clerics and Revolutionary Guard generals. For the first 10 years, the Islamic Republic retained much of its popular support, in part because the world was absorbed in its own post-Cold War chaos. The monarchy was replaced not by freedom, critics argue, but by a hybrid system, part theocratic, part authoritarian, and one that increasingly restricted the liberties of its own people. A pivotal moment came in 1989, when a faction within the regime referred to in some accounts as Tehrik-i-Insaf consolidated power through what was effectively a coup d'état. For the next decade and a half, Iran followed a path resembling global communist systems, where personal freedoms were subordinated to state control. By the 2000s, the regime had shed any remaining pretense of reform. It systematically suppressed elected presidents, hollowing out elections until they became mere rituals. While the constitution allowed for independent candidates, they almost never won. Elections became a metaphor, a vote where the outcome was preordained by the Council of Experts, the clerical legal bodies, and the National Security Council, all ultimately under Khamenei's shadow. The people watched they would be crushed beneath an iron fist. The first major explosion came in 2009, after a presidential election widely condemned as fraudulent where the incumbent, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, was accused of winning through manipulated voter numbers. The streets of Tehran erupted. Independent candidates and their young, restless supporters knew they had been robbed. The regime answered with batons, bullets, and mass arrests. Opposition politicians began to disappear, imprisoned or worse. The Green Movement was crushed, but it planted a seed. 13 years later, that seed burst through the concrete. In September 2022, a young woman named Mahsa Amini was arrested by morality police for allegedly wearing her hijab improperly. She was tortured in custody and died. Her death ignited a nationwide uprising unlike any before. Women chanted "Woman, Life, Freedom," cutting their hair in public. Men joined them. The slogan was not just about the hijab. It was a cry against the entire dictatorship of the supreme leader and the Revolutionary Guard. The regime responded with savage brutality. Security forces fired live ammunition into crowds. Courts began handing down mass death sentences, life imprisonment, execution by hanging, and direct killings of prisoners accused of organizing forces against the Islamic Republic. According to unaffiliated organizations, the death penalty accelerated rapidly. International human rights groups documented that from 2022 onward, an average of 500 people per year faced execution. That number climbed to 1,000 by 2024, exceeded 1,000 by 2025, and reached over 1,500 facing the gallows by early 2026. All were accused of opposing the regime, whether through large protests or small acts of defiance. Between 2022 and 2025, more than 50,000 demonstrators were arrested. The state security forces patrolled both cities and rural villages, using guns and knives to disperse their own citizens. By January 2026, the pressure was unbearable. The economy had collapsed. 500,000 Iranian rials, a stack of cash, could barely buy a single chicken. Meat prices had skyrocketed, and inflation had risen by 200%. People were protesting first against hunger, then against the regime that caused it. The cry for an end to the Islamic Republic became a roar. On a cold January day, the capital erupted. An estimated 6 million people participated in demonstrations nationwide, with the fiercest battles in Tehran. This was no longer a protest. It was an insurrection aimed at overthrowing the regime. The Iranian military responded with weapons of war. Vehicles mounted with machine guns rolled into the streets, firing directly at unarmed protesters, men, women, and children. By January 22, 2026, the death toll had reached an unfathomable 40,000. More than 330,000 were wounded, and approximately 100,000 were arrested. These figures, cited by an Iranian news agency relying on independent sources from a human rights council, painted a picture of genocide. The people were finally, openly, trying to kill the regime that had been killing them for 47 years. Desperate and outgunned, many Iranians began to look abroad. Since 1979, the United States and Israel had been the Islamic Republic's great enemies. Now, some protesters called for war, for American bombs to do what their bare hands could not. When news arrived that Israeli or US strikes had killed top Iranian leaders, people secretly celebrated. They sang in the streets of Tehran and among the 10 million strong diaspora. They dreamed of the supreme leader's fall. But that dream soured. A 14-day war between Iran and the US-Israeli alliance ended not with Tehran's liberation, but with a ceasefire. Both Washington and Tehran declared victory, the US claiming it had destroyed key military sites, Iran claiming it had repelled the invaders. But the Iranian people knew they had lost. Their January uprising had failed. They had wanted the foreign armies to shatter the regime, but instead, the regime survived, bruised but intact. The ceasefire agreement left the Islamic Republic's structure of power untouched. No provision was made for a transition of power in Tehran. Paramilitary forces continued to patrol the streets with artillery and machine guns, ready to shoot anyone who dared rise again. 80% of Iran's 90 million people, many of whom still harbor a nostalgic love for the old monarchy and yearn for democracy, were plunged into despair. They watched as the US and Israel discussed how to end the war without overthrowing Khamenei. For many Iranians, this peace was a betrayal, a peace that denied them the right to revolt. Only the children of the 1979 revolution, those loyal to the regime, celebrated. Everyone else saw a continuous, open wound. Social media filled with anguished cries. "We are waiting for US troops," one post read. "We want the overthrow of the Islamic Republic," another warned. "They have left us as a proxy." The Iranians who had risked everything in January 2026 felt abandoned. The US and Israel bragged about their respective victories. Iran's National Security Council boasted that it had forced a US withdrawal from Gulf bases. But on the ground, the Iranian people continued to die not by foreign guns, but by the guns of their own regime, reaching into their homes every day. So who won? The United States declared victory. The Islamic Republic of Iran declared victory. The real loser is the Iranian people, defeated in the most unjust and cruel way by both their own tyrants and the indifference of the outside world. After 47 years of the Islamic Republic, after the massacres of 2009, 2022, and January 2026, the people are still waiting. They have not risen from the grave of their crushed uprising, but they are watching. They are waiting for the next opportunity. The war for Iran is not over. It is only frozen, and the people are still crying out for freedom.